Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast Why You Do What You Do. Podcast that talks about human development and psychology to help you maybe figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about the foundations of intimate relationships, because some people don't have great examples, of intimate relationships, so they don't really know how to have them. I've found that to be true. Me and my husband went to couples counseling because we didn't have the best examples, in our parents of intimate relationships or, anyone else for that matter. So, we're going to take back up on that. The internet has brought a new dimension to relationships. Online relationships tend to be weaker than face-to-face ones. And of course, that's because you're not involved in all the aspects of the person. You're seeing a 2D image on a screen like you're looking at me now. And that's not an in-depth look at a person. There's a lot of aspects to a person. You might, that's why people who fall in love with people, who are on TV or movies or whatever, that shows they have a lacking in them that makes them, want this other person when it's not a real person because they're playing a character. So, if you're gonna do the computer dating, I did it for 8 years. My son encouraged me to do it, and I found out all the good ones got married and stayed married because they were the good ones. But there are a few okay. If you're gonna do the computer dating thing, also get to know the person. Also, go out on a date with the person. Distance relationships don't work anyway. People say they do, and eventually, you're gonna meet someone else out where you are, and that's gonna become a problem. So my advice is to date people in your area online, then go meet them in person and see if you got something going on. Because sometimes the person is super great online, and then in person, not so much. So that's my advice on that. In a longitudinal study of 93 Pittsburgh families from diverse, good gosh, bleh, don't have a stroke, neighborhoods, internet users tended to become less socially involved, to communicate less within the family, and to have fewer friends. And that's because the internet becomes the life. And the internet should not become the life. It can be a tool to use as part of your life, but it should not be your life. You should have relationships with your family and your friends and people you work with, people you come into contact with, neighbors if you got some good ones, neighborhood interactions, might not be the best, but you can find people that you like to have real relationships with, and not just the internet. Now, I'm a big liker of Facebook because it lets me keep in touch with family and friends who live far away, who I don't get to talk to or see anymore. Internet can be a two-edged sword. It can be a good thing. It can be a not healthy thing if you're too into it. Internet use also was associated with increases in loneliness and depression. And that's because on the screen, it looks like all these other people are having this great life because you're watching it on a screen. You're not seeing your life on a screen to show you how great that is. I did a little exercise with one of my coaching clients. When you start feeling like that, then you probably have saved a bunch of pictures on your computer, right? Do a slideshow. Look at those pictures on your computer and see how great your life has been. And you'll realize, hey, I am well blessed. I've had a great life too. It's just that you don't see it the way you see other people's when you're scrolling through. Because it's your life, However, a follow-up study suggests that these negative effects may have been related to initial use of a new technology and may diminish with accustomed use. So, that can start, and then, like I say, once you realize this is what they're showing other people, might not be the in-depth, then, you can just say, well, they're having fun doing this, that, and the other thing, but hey, check out this thing I did. It was pretty cool. That was great. So, friendship. Friendships during young and middle adulthood tend to center on work and parenting activities and the sharing of with confidences and advice. So, young friendships in adulthood, that's what it's about. Usually you make friends at work. I actually had someone who once told me, yeah, I'm going to quit hanging around with you because I only like my work friends now. I'm going to hang with anyone, from high school. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting that you felt like you had to make a choice there, because you don't. My friend is a friend, but whatever. So, you might share confidences with friends at work. I found out someone who pretended to be my friend at work one time was probably the biggest gossip in the place, but I didn't know that at the time. Told her some personal stuff. Next time I went to work, it was all over the workplace, and I'm like, why would you do that? She goes, well, you didn't say it was a secret. It's like, well, no, but you were telling me personal stuff, and so I was telling you personal stuff. I didn't go around telling all your personal stuff to people, and that's when another person, a friend up there, warned me, yeah, she's the biggest gossip. Don't tell her anything you don't want everyone to know. So I was like, okay, now I know. You ain't my friend anymore. And advice. We ask our friends for advice more so than our parents. And that's because we feel like they are in the same situation as us and in the same place as us. And we feel like, as far as life goes, they might know a little bit more. That's not always true, but that's how you think. Of course, friendships vary in character and quality, and that's true. I don't like to unfriend people because I feel like people deserve a chance. But there are lines, and when you cross the line, I'm going to let you know you crossed the line, and then we're not friends anymore because, I have a code of ethics, and, if you violate that, I'm not okay with that. I feel like there's no reason for you to use or abuse me or be mean to me for no reason or to sexually harass me. So, if you come in one of those categories, I'm probably going to cut you loose because life's too short. I want to enjoy my life and I want to be happy. And if you're making me unhappy with the things you're doing or saying to me, I got no use for you. Some are extremely intimate and supportive, and those are the kinds I like. Others are marked by frequent conflict, and those are the kinds I don't like so much. But I'm okay with conflict as long as we're keeping it respectful. If you have to, fall to the bottom of name calling, nitpicking, blah blah blah, it's like, why do I want to bother with this? Why, if all you're doing is throwing passive aggressive and BS crap at me, why do I want to deal with this? I don't. Some friends have many interests in common. Others are based on a single shared activity, such as bowling or bridge. And now most of my friends, we have a lot of interests in common. There are people who I've met that I'm friends with. We had like one little area in common, like natural medicine or the theater or, art or whatever. So, a friend is a friend. It's like if you're going to go do a certain thing, which friends will be interested in that. And those are the ones you invite because they're going to enjoy it and have a good time. And so will you with them. Some friendships are lifelong. Others are fleeting. And I have a lot of friends who I've been friends with since elementary school, middle school, high school. It's because we came up in similar situations in similar neighborhood, and we bonded, and we have a lot of history together. And we're a lot alike. But now I have had friends in the past that I let go because we became friends and we were friendly for a bit, but then the behavior was not cool. You know, if you tell me you're going to take something of mine, I'm not going to be okay with that, of course. If you tell me I need to do something for you that is not legal, I'm not okay with that, of course. I'm a law-abiding citizen, a good Christian as far as I can tell and try to be. So I'm not going to be cool with that. If I do a thing for you, and then I ask you a favor, the same similar thing, and you can't be bothered to do that for me, I'm not okay with that either. So there are friendships that are fleeting, and don't let it bug you too much, because if a person behaves towards you like that, that says a lot more about them than it does about you. Because if you're not trying to dominate them in some way or harm them in some way, and then they feel they need to do that to you, they're the ones with the problem. Some best friendships are more stable than ties to a lover or spouse. And interestingly, my husband started out as my best friend in 10th grade. We were best friends. We hung out together. We did everything together. And then we became more than best friends. And that's why I say, in my opinion, some macho guys think if you say they're your friend, that cuts you out of ever being in a romantic relationship. To me, it does not. In my way of thinking, which is, educated in certain ways, I feel like you have to be friends with the person first. You have to be friends and have some common interests so that the relationship will stick. Because if you have absolutely nothing in common, you're this way, he's that way, and there's no common ground, opposites attract in the beginning, but as far as a lasting relationship, that's going to fall apart. Because you don't have any common ground. So my advice is, be friends with a person you're romantically interested in first. Hang out, talk on the phone, go on dates, do things, and find out if you like this person as a friend. Don't worry so much about the romance part, because if you are good friends, that usually will take care of itself. That's what I feel. And we all know there's things you can tell your girlfriends or your guy friends that you don't talk to your spouse about, especially dirty jokes or sexist things you shouldn't say anyway. Young singles rely more on friendships to fulfill their social needs than young marrieds or young parents do. But newlyweds have the greatest number of friends. And that's because, we're more used to dealing with friends than we are a romantic partner, and that's where we turn for support a lot of times. And I know newlyweds do have a lot of friends. When my husband and I first got married, we had an apartment, and I would call friends, and we would have people over, and we had movie night, pizza, and beer and things like that. And then we started learning who the real friends were and who the friends were who were just kind of coming around, to get the free meal and, watch a free movie or whatever, because got to the point where we had saved a little money in our savings account. We ran through that, and they're like, hey, you guys are going to have to bring your own pizza, bring your own beer, we'll provide the movie and we'll have some, but, you might want to bring your own. We'll just have the one pizza and some drinks. And then people started falling off, because we weren't paying their way anymore. So, sometimes you find out who's just along for the ride and who's really your friend. So, the number of friends and the amount of time spent with them generally decreases by middle age. And that's true because you have responsibilities. You have, kids to take care of. You have work and life. And usually by the time that's over at the end of the day, you're just like, ugh. And you just want to veg out from the TV and, get your housework done or whatever. So, but I recommend having one day a week, like maybe Saturday night, have that for friends. You guys can go to a movie or, out to dinner and hang out and, just have time for friends so that you can socialize and, be happy and de-stress. Young adults who are building careers and perhaps caring for babies have limited time to spend with friends, which, just makes sense, of course. Still, friendships are important to them. And to most people, they are. Now, we talked about, the loners the other day, and, that's one of the maturational tasks, is becoming, a social, intimate person versus becoming an antisocial, isolated person. So, that's one of the tasks of maturing is, being interested in other people and socializing with other people. So, people with friends tend to have a sense of well-being. Either having friends makes people feel good about themselves, or people who feel good about themselves have an easier time making friends. And I think there's truth in that, because I was usually a happy-go-lucky, positive person coming up, and I had a lot of friends. Now some of them weren't necessarily real friends, or they were frenemies. I found that out the hard way too. But I made a lot of friends, and I still have quite a few friends. But I don't keep in touch with them as much. I'd love to. I'd like to, have fun with them all the time. But we have lives and kids, and a lot of my friends have grandkids already. But life just happens. But friends are a part of your life. I've heard people say friends are your chosen family, and you should keep in touch with them, and make them a part of your life. Make time for them. Young women, whether single or married, and whether or not they have children, tend to have more of their social needs met by friends than young men do. And women have always been more social. We know that. We have more friends. Friendships more competitive. If you remember middle school, good gosh. I'm your best friend. She's not. I want to be your best friend. What is up with that? But, that's the thing amongst women. And, unfortunately, it can be competitive like that. Women typically have more intimate friendships than men and find friendships with other women more satisfying than those with men. Because, girl talk. Girls will talk about stuff that your male friends won't talk with you about. And yes, it is okay to have male friends if that's what they are. I mean, I hear that story. You can't be friends with a man or woman. You can't have friends of the opposite sex, or the sex you're attracted to. That's not true. I know guys I grew up with in the neighborhood or at school or whatever, and we're still friends. And I'm not got designs on them, and as far as I know, they don't have designs on me. But we still have things to talk about every now and then. Now, when there's a little dish and stuff, usually the girls talk about that stuff. The guys are usually a little hands off on that stuff. They don't want to get involved. They don't know the whole, I don't know. But, there's still a benefit to having male friends. I had coworkers I was friends with, and still friends with some of them. And that's all we were. We weren't out for each other or hot for each other or whatever. But there's a lot of people who think you can't have friends of the opposite sex. But that's not true as long as you're behaving yourself, Men are more likely to share information and activities, not confidences, with friends. So men like to hang out and do stuff together. They don't necessarily talk about personal stuff, because the whole macho thing that unfortunately goes on. So, men's friendships aren't quite as deep as women's, because women we'll get into the emotional stuff. We'll talk about the emotional stuff with each other. Men, not so much. They just like to hang. Love. Oh, yes. We're going to talk about love and people's perceptions of love and what love could be to you. Most people like love stories, including their own. And most of us do, especially women. We like that. We like love. It makes us feel good. In a sense, says Robert J. Sternberg, love is a story, and it is. We grow up, and our parents did us no favors by that, with the fairy tales of the prince who's going to whisk us away and the white horse and blah, blah, blah. And then when we find out, he's just a person too, like me, it's not as great. But, love is a story that you write. You write your love story. That's important to remember. It might not look like these other stories out here in these fairy tales, but if you're happy with it, if you two are happy with what's going on in your relationship and, enjoy each other's company, that's your story. You get to write it. And, it doesn't matter if nobody else wants to read it or whatever. That's yours. Own it. The lovers are its authors, and the kind of story they make up reflects their personalities and their feelings about the relationship. So, if you have more positive feelings about the relationship than negative, that's going to be better for you. There was one of these things online, and they were talking about negative aspects of relationships and things. You get into something what you put out of it. If you're putting negative into it all the time, that's what you're going to get out of it. If you put positive into it, be nice to each other. Remember why you're together in the beginning, and be friends to each other. Then that's what you're going to get out of the relationship. So a happy relationship takes happy people to work on a happy relationship, Excuse me. There needs to be construction, not destruction, in order to have a healthy relationship. Excuse me. Love stories also differ historically and across cultures, because not all cultures think the same thing is great or right. So every culture has a different feeling, about what love should be. Thinking of love as a story may help us see how people select and mix the elements of the plot. So, you choose what you want out of a relationship. And one of the things they teach you in couples counseling is write down what love looks like to you. What are the things you want out of this relationship? What are the things you don't want in this relationship? And then you can look at each other's notes. It's not like a test. You get to look at each other's notes. And then you feel what this person wants from the relationship. And usually it's not that hard. It's not that big a deal. And you're perfectly happy to do for them as long as they're doing, the things that you, want them to do, and not doing the things you don't want them to do, and then you don't do the things they don't want you to do. And then you have this construction, in your relationship, and that makes it that much better. According to Sternberg's triangular theory of love, the three elements of love are intimacy, getting to know each other, like songs, getting to know you, getting to like you, passion, because like I say, if you are physically attracted to each other and you become friends and then you become more than friends, passion is just going to ensue. That's going to take care of itself. I'm just going to put that out there. That part's going to take care of itself. The relationship part's the harder part. That part's going to take care of itself. And commitment. That's the hardest part right there. To be committed to your partner. To love your partner enough to want to stay in the relationship and make a commitment to building a life together. That's the hard part, because nowadays, with an over 50% divorce rate, and that's something that me and my husband struggle with, because, we triggered each other. We had different upbringings, but not the best ones, and certain things he would say remind me of my dad or mom. Certain things I would say evidently reminded him of his. And so then we would be upset with each other and be like, that's it, I'm done, I can't take this anymore. And one would walk out of the other one, and then one would fight and the other one would. So we had to learn how. We always loved each other. We always knew we did. We had to learn how to love each other because we didn't know how. And that's the problem with a lot of people who come from dysfunctional, families and marriages, is you don't really know how to love another person because you weren't loved like you should have been. And you see this dynamic around you that's not, like a loving family should be. So you really don't know. You can guess from fairy tales or movies or what other people say, but, eventually you might have to have some talks with some people and get it figured out. I mean, we did, and there's no shame in that, If you don't know, you don't know. If you didn't learn it, you didn't learn it. So, intimacy, the emotional elements involve self-disclosure. You gotta talk to your, person. Forget about this thing where men like a mysterious woman who never talks about herself. No, they really don't. They would like to have a nice connection with you and be intimate with you. Which leads to connection. Again, connection. Warmth. That warm, fuzzy feeling you get, when you see the hubby or your wife and you want to give them a hug. Stop. And trust. There has to be trust in a relationship. It's like the Elvis song, we can't go on together with suspicious minds. You have to trust your partner. If you and your partner have made a commitment and they say they're not going to, cheat on you, or you're not going to cheat on them or whatever, trust that they're not. Don't be, looking at everything all the time and, deciding, that I think they're cheating on me. Because that's not very trusting, is it? And like in my first marriage, he said he was going to disable my car if I went to a birthday party because there would be other guys there and he didn't trust me to not, mess around with these other guys. So he didn't have very high opinion of me, back then. So one of the reasons we got divorced. But, passion, the motivational element, is based on inner drives that translate physiological arousal into sexual desire. So that's why I said that will take care of itself. If you're attracted to this other person, that's going to take care of itself. Commitment, the cognitive element, is the decision to love and to stay with the beloved. And that is a choice. Because, you choose to stay with them and be committed to them and work it out. And like I said before, my other previous marriage, the husband was not willing to stay and work it out. He wanted, everything to be his way, and, he didn't want anything to be my way, and of course that's a problem. And he wasn't willing to work it out. Didn't want to go to counseling, didn't want to, work on the relationship. He just wanted, everything to be his way. And of course, I was not okay with that. Especially if some of the things were going on. So when he learned that love and relationship is a decision, a commitment, and that he was willing to work on the relationship, I was so surprised when he came back after 8 years. I'm willing to, put my family back together and work at the relationship. I'm like, what? Because heretofore he had not been. So that's important. Commitment to the person, to the relationship, to your life together as a couple is important. The degree to which each of the three elements is present determines what kind of love people have. So, like I say, friends, that become more than that, that might be you like that nice compatible relationship. The passion type relationships, those burn pretty hot at first, but if you don't have anything else, they might wane. And then the committed relationships, these are the old people that we see that are having 50 and 60, 75-year anniversary parties, So it just depends on what type of relationship you have and how much you're invested in it. And mismatches can lead to problems, needless to say. If you start out with this person thinking they're one way and they're actually another way, and everyone thinks that, because we don't show others, all our flaws up front, of course not. So you're going to find out that the other person is not exactly who you thought they were, because that's a construct of your mind. You think they're this way, but maybe they're not. So when you start getting into that, you need to allow the other person to be a human being and allow them to have their own life, their own space, their own interests. Because if not, that's going to be a problem. So, remember that you didn't show everything about yourself up front, and so maybe neither did they, Window on the World, Cultural Conceptions of Love. In William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, a fairy king who wants to play a trick on his queen squeezes the juice of a magic flower into her sleeping eyes so that she will fall in love with the first person she sees upon awakening. who turns out to be an actor wearing a donkey's head. That tale is one source of the old saying, love is blind. And now, first of all, I would think the guy was a jerk for doing that to his wife. you know, but, you know, as we know, that story, it's weird anyway. But love is blind. If you really love someone, you're going to turn a blind eye, and that can be by choice, to the things that are not so great about them that bother you. Now, you should not allow yourself to be used and abused. But otherwise, you know, like I said about with the kids, it's not so important how they do things, it's just that it gets done. So you can remember that. That's also important in a relationship. He might not fold the towels the way you want him to, but as long as he did it, that's cool. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. I hope that helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.